All right, can everybody see my slides? Thumbs up. All right, awesome. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the insurance space right now, and I was looking at the reactions. I have a feeling I'm going to be seeing a lot of those wow faces, or shocked, or surprised, or whatever you want to interpret that reaction as. Because I do have a lot of content to cover. Some of it is not, it's not good, it's not great, but it is truthful, it's factual, and one of the things that I want y'all to know is there is somebody in your corner. There is people fighting for you, and the situation is not good surrounding insurance right now, but there are things that we can do about it, and there are things that you can do to be proactive. And I'm going to equip you with those tools today. So make sure a little bit more about me than what Cindy's already covered. I work at Confloy. I lead our insurance team there. And Confloy as a whole is more than just insurance. That's my particular piece of the puzzle, and where my specialty focus is. But Confloy as a whole specializes in a lot of different areas, really aiming to help you tackle all those difficult operational areas that, if most of you came into this industry and worked your way up to becoming an owner. You didn't step into this industry because you just woke up one day and thought, I want to own a childcare center. So Confloy really strives to help you with all those really crucial and compliant heavy areas of your business that can be quite painful to learn the hard way. So just know that. I'll share our contact information at the end with our website, and if y'all want to learn more. But I don't want to spend a lot of time here because we have so much to cover. I am an industry expert. I've worked with childcare center owners since I started my insurance career back in 2011. The agency that I started working at kind of had a focus there, and it was an eye-opening experience for me in a lot of ways, but one of the crucial and pivotal moments in my life while working at that agency was a situation that happened with my son. And that's what led me to become an advocate and resource for all of you. So I'm going to tell y'all my Tatum story. He was not quite 4 here. And this is the incident that led me to be as passionate about what I'm doing now, and why it's so important to me that you know what coverage you have, why you need it, different claim scenarios that it can protect you from, because of my traumatic story with Tatum. He was running in a classroom and ran right into the corner of a cubby. So that's where he got that gnarly gash on his head. And guys, when I say I rounded that corner and I made eye contact with him, I had to immediately check my face, because my facial expressions are very loud, and it's hard for me to hide. It's hard for me to hide my reactions on my face. So I had to control that immediately because I didn't want to cause him panic. Looking at that gash, I thought for sure if he starts crying again, like blood's going to come pouring down his forehead. And obviously the center staff had done a wonderful job calming him down, because he was not crying when I got there to pick him up. So that spoke volumes in and of itself of how wonderful the staff were. But picked him up, took him to urgent care, and that's where the trauma happened. The nursing staff injected what was supposed to be numbing cream around the wound, and it did not work. The numbing cream, the whole purpose of that was so that he wouldn't feel the stitches and the needle going in and out of his forehead. He felt every single bit of it. And when I tell y'all he was wailing on the table, screaming for me to rescue him, it broke my heart, absolutely broke my heart. And all I could do was curl up in a ball over by the door. It took my husband and 3 other staff members to hold him down. Mind you, he's not even 4 yet. Took 4 adults to hold him down, because he's kicking and screaming from the pain and wants mommy to save him. And I can't, because I know he needs the stitches. That's not something that I can just put a Band-Aid on and it's going to heal from. So fast forward, we spent the next 2 days at home just loving on each other because we both needed that reassurance, right, in one another that we were going to be there. And when I took him back to his preschool, the director at the time, she'd been there for about 20 years. She met me at the front counter, and she asked, will our insurance cover this? And the reason she asked me that was I worked at the agency that she had been insured with for 20 something years that insured the program, or that our agency insured. So for her to have been there and had insurance coverage with the agency that I worked at for as long as they did and have no idea if a situation like my son's injury would be covered, that was a light bulb moment for me that we were not doing a good job educating our clients on how their insurance was designed to protect them from situations like this. No, I did not file a claim against one of my clients' insurance policies. I just want to throw that out there. I'm not one of those people, but that's what set me on this trajectory to educate educators, basically, and make sure that there is training available to you in this area where this is not y'all's specialty. So with that said, I would like to start off with a poll. And Mariah, if you will help me opening that.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Everyone should.
All right, if everybody will just, I think you should be able to choose more than one answer. So any and all that apply. If you've faced any of these insurance hurdles, please cast your votes. I'm going to be talking a lot about these areas today.
And just to let you know, Sam, you're a little glitchy from time to time. So I know you told me to let you know that if that became an issue.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to turn off my video to make sure that y'all can hear me clearly. I live out in the country and my internet is really spotty. So as long as y'all can hear me, that's the most important thing. Perks of country living. All right, I'll give it a few more seconds here. It still looks like we have a lot of votes coming in. Thank you for those of you that have participated so far. A lot of non-renewals. A lot of premium increases. Higher deductibles. Yeah, so these results are very much in line with what I'm seeing in the industry. And just to give y'all, let me share this next slide so that y'all can see how that fares compared to other trends. Make sure it keeps us up. All right. So trends in the industry right now, they're not pretty. And y'all's votes literally mimic exactly what I'm already seeing. So premium increases. These are per site, 2023. And this is based on my personal data from clients that I have all across the US. This data is not driven by any national averages or other agencies. This is my personal data, numbers that I've pulled from clients that I insure. So premium increases average per site without claims last year was around $3,300. This year it's closer to $4,100. With claims has gotten even more painful. It went from just under $9,800 per site last year to now almost $16,000. Guys, that's a substantial annual increase. And a lot of your programs, that's not sustainable long-term at all. And that's if you can find coverage. So the other issue that we're facing and seeing a lot of is those non-renewal letters in the last 12 months. 10% declination. We're seeing a lot of declinations over varying reasons, licensing violations. Underwriting is looking at your inspection reports. And I'm going to teach you how to confront those and paint your program in the way that you're addressing licensing violations in a way that helps the insurance companies understand from your point of view, not just the negative picture that it paints from licensing. New and unexpected exclusions. That was about 14% of you experienced new exclusions. I'm seeing a lot of abuse molestation exclusions. That was never a thing before. Most insurance companies have been willing to include abuse molestation in the package policies. And now I'm seeing more and more carriers either exclude abuse altogether or significantly sublimit it. Before, getting 1 million in coverage for abuse was easy. And now we're lucky if we get 100,000 offered for abuse coverage. In an industry where, one accusation can cripple your business, not being able to get the higher limits of coverage is really terrifying for a childcare owner. Increased deductibles, definitely. If you previously had a $1,000 property deductible, that was standard of years. Now the new standard seems to be $5,000. I still see a couple with being offered a $2,500 property deductible, but everybody, for the renewal offers that I'm seeing or new quotes that I'm seeing, are experiencing increased deductibles, less coverage, like the abuse situation, for instance. And then substantial premium increases. So not only are we facing all these new hurdles, but it's coming at a higher cost for less coverage. And that's the direction that we're in right now based on the hard market. And I want to give you all a little bit of backstory of where that's coming from. And also reassurance, this isn't a specific to childcare problem. There are some extra struggles because of the nature of childcare that complicates things, but the National Association of Insurance Commissioners released some data for 2023, and they said that the net ratio for the United States property and casualty market, so think all homeowners, all auto policies, all commercial businesses, property, work comp, business auto, liability, all of those types of coverage, flood, fall under what we call property and casualty. And in the last, 50 years, an average or normal range for the US PNC is property and casualty, an average loss ratio is between 69 to 76% year over year. In 2023 alone, the US netted a 103.9 loss ratio. So that means collectively, the entire insurance industry as a whole in the US paid more in claims than what they took in premiums. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. That's why you're getting auto renewal bills for your personal vehicles that are so much higher. That's why you're seeing increased premiums on your homeowners policies as well. It's not just specific to your childcare business, but all facets of our life right now. What complicates it with childcare is there was so few insurance companies to begin with willing to insure in this business. Typically, there's been about 12 insurance companies that were willing to insure childcare in what we call the standard market. So think your Philadelphia, Nationwide, why am I drawing a blank? Markel. Those are companies that we consider in the standard market. In the last quarter of 2023, we lost at least 5 of those, almost one on top of another. So that dwindled our pool of available insurers down by almost half immediately. And then we've lost a couple more this year that have decided that they no longer want to insure childcare business as well. So our pool of available insurers is dwindling down to basically nothing, which is why it's becoming so hard for all of you to find coverage. Not only that, the surplus market, which is typically our backup pool of insurance companies, when you can't find a market in the standard insurance pool, there's surplus lines that exist to in most cases ensure the risks that nobody else wants. Our surplus market is now also struggling, and those carriers are deciding that childcare is too risky of a business, and they're scaling back as well, which really leaves us with not many options and scrambling to piece together whatever we can. General liability with one company, property with one company, auto, literally just scrapping together something versus before when coverage was pretty easy to find. You could find one company that would insure most of it together. That is now not our reality anymore. All right, so to compare y'all's data to another event that I was at where we took a similar poll, I want to show you this is not exclusive to just you. There are a lot of people on here that are from different states, different areas. This is a national issue right now. Here's the data from 36 responses. Almost everybody in that room said that they'd experienced increased deductibles, and their results were very similar to yours. A lot experienced non-renewal, declinations, new exclusions, and less coverage. And then there were a handful that hadn't experienced any issues yet. And I think that's probably because they haven't approached their renewal yet. And then I also took a separate poll asking, how much did your premium increase per site? This last column, the 10,000, I had several people in that room ask me, well, what if our premium per site was over 10,000? It won't let us select anything more than that. So I said, just choose 10,000 because that's the highest we have. So some of those people who voted, their premium per site at the last renewal was even higher than $10,000. All right, so what are we going to do about it? How can we proactively address this problem? If you're approaching renewal and in the process of, what can we do to make this better? There are some tips that I'm going to share to help you get your submission noticed. Gather and share these documents with your agent. You need to have access to full copies of your policies. And I strongly recommend that you do not redact the premiums. Most people don't, but I have seen a handful of people before like white out their premiums. And the reason you don't want to do that is any agent that you're working with, their goal is to win your business. They're going to want to do that by either beating your current premium or finding you better coverage, or both. But if you redact your premiums, not only do they not have a target to give the insurance company, and the insurance company wants to know what your premiums are, so they have a target to hit. They know where they need to be, or at least this used to be the thing. Competitive premiums is not so much a thing that underwriting considers anymore. But I would rather you be upfront and open about that, because if you do happen to have an underwriter that sees you as a smart risk and one worth insuring, that you've got all the right things in place, you're doing all the risk mitigation, then they might try harder to fight for your business. But if they don't know where to aim and they're just throwing in the dark, then it's going to be harder for them to do that. So full copies of your policies, share those with your agent, allow them to review and see what your coverage looks like right now, and what you're paying for that coverage. Loss runs. These are your claims history reports. Most insurance companies are looking for 5 years, at least 5 years. So if you were with Philadelphia for 2 years, but you were with Markel 3 years prior to that, then you have to contact both companies, Markel and Philadelphia, and ask them for your loss runs. Now, if you've been with the same agent that entire 5-year period, your agent will be able to access those loss runs because they'll have control of them. But if you're working with a new agent, like for instance, if any of you were to contact me to work on new quotes for you, I wouldn't have access to your old loss history, even if I have appointments with Markel in Philadelphia. You would have to be the one to either work with your agent to get the old loss runs or contact those companies directly. But you will need loss history, even if you've never had claims, because again, this is your claims history report. So being able to show that you have 5 years of claim-free data shows that you are less of a risk because you've never experienced claims before. These have to be valued within 60 days of your expiration date. So, one of my tips is starting early. I would start collecting the rest of the data 4 months in advance, but I would hold off on asking for those lost runs, or just know in advance that you'll have to ask for lost runs a second time. Because if you order lost runs 4 months prior, they're then going to be considered not current valued, and you'll have to ask for them again 60 days prior to your expiration. Most recent licensing reports. Insurance companies are looking at your inspection history 100%, and they're using that as a means to determine how risky you are. So there's always licensing's version of the truth and what the inspection reports paint to an insurance underwriter, and they're thinking worst case scenario. And then there's your version of events and what happened, and that violation was corrected on site. Being able to confront those violations and control the narrative is going to be key. Background checks is a big one right now. I presented a webinar to the Licensed Childcare Association of Oklahoma last night, and one of their big complaints is background checks are taking so long to get back from their state right now. So their concern is if they walk in, or if licensing walks in and cites them for not having a current background check, but they did everything that they could, they submitted what they needed to in time, but it's the state that's not getting the information back to them, then confronting that and explaining that to underwriting before they're just looking at the website and saying, oh, this person is letting a criminal fresh out of prison walk in, apply for a job, and then start on site without a background check. Like, it paints a completely different picture. You have got to control the narrative painted by negative licensing violations. And it doesn't have to be every violation. The small ones that do not pose harm to a child, don't worry about those. Don't worry about the minor things. You want to confront the ones that could pose harm to a child. Improper supervision, out of ratio, neglectful supervision, broken playground equipment, or any kind of protruding parts, damaged fence or playground, chemicals that are in bottles not properly labeled, cords that kids have access to, violations of that nature, you've got to confront. And you know what? Some of them are legit. Confront that still and say, you know what? We own it. It happened. But this is what we've done since then to keep it from happening again. We had a team meeting. We reviewed that violation with everybody so they could all learn from the mistake. This is how we changed our policies and procedures. Let them know that you're owning up to the mistake, but you have changed things in your program to make sure that it's not going to happen again. That goes a lot farther than not confronting it and just letting underwriting think whatever it is that they think by reading it. Also, pull copies of all of your childcare licenses. That will be needed with your application. If you are an accredited program, absolutely submit copies of those certificates. I'll teach you how to paint your picture with the narrative and actually have a resource for you. We'll talk in great deal more about that in the next couple of slides. Complete applications entirely. So important that you slow down and read every single question. I know, trust me, I know, because I have to review the applications. They're painful. They ask a lot of information and you just want to hurry up and speed through and get done with them. I get it. But filling out an application correctly can literally make or break you getting a quote. I'll give you 2 examples. I had a client that was getting declined. Every insurance company was declining. We could not figure out why. And then finally, one of the underwriters responds to me and says, we don't have any markets for corporal punishment exposure. And I'm like, huh? What? None of our programs, like corporal punishment, is excluded. We don't have, what do you mean corporal punishment exposure? They had answered one question. It was a yes or no checkbox. And they wrote out that their corporal punishment policy was that it's forbidden. However, 2 questions just below that asked, have you ever been accused or investigated for a corporal punishment incident? And they answered yes. I didn't catch it before I sent it into underwriting. So that's why I was getting all those declinations. But if I said, oh no, that was a mistake, just to now try and get quotes, how sketchy does it look that, well, we've now submitted a submission to all of these different insurance companies, saw that we didn't get a quote, and now we're changing our answer. So you've got to slow down and think, read those questions carefully, make sure you're answering them accurately. I had a similar situation happen, except it wasn't about corporal punishment. It was about drop-in programs. Brand new startup program, and she had answered that they offer drop-in care. Drop-in care is a big sticking point to insurance companies. Again, I missed it on the application, and we got declinations from every insurance company we approached. Finally, she reached out and I said, I don't think we're going to have anything for you because the drop-in exposure, nobody is willing to quote the drop-in exposure. And she said, oh, did I answer that? We don't have drop-in. That must have been a mistake. So make sure you're paying attention to the application questions and answering them accordingly. It does make a difference. And then give underwriters ample time. Due to the mass exodus of insurance companies available in the marketplace, it's not like all of those companies that decided to leave phoned up the other companies that were staying in and said, hey, by the way, we're all getting out of the industry, so amp up your underwriting staff because you're about to get a lot more submissions. That didn't happen. So you have a bottleneck effect of, what used to be 12 insurance companies getting quotes from agents all over the US to now like 4 insurance companies getting quotes from all over the US. So they're requiring more time to be able to review all of them because they don't have the bandwidth. So start early. I would recommend 4 months prior to your expiration date, go ahead and start working on gathering these documents because it's all stuff that your agent is going to ask for. So be prepared before they ask for it. Okay, I talked about how you complete applications matter in regards to the questions. I need all of you, whether you own the building or not, to know this information. Your construction type. Is it wood frame? Is it concrete block? Is it joisted masonry where you've got steel beams, flat roof? Like you've got to know information about the building that you operate in. Whether or not you own the building, this data will be required for you to get a quote. I get asked all the time because people don't understand, well, the landlord takes care of the property insurance, so why do I need to know? Well, if you operate in a building that's 100 years old and it's never been properly maintained, it still has old electrical wiring, the insurance company is looking at this going, okay, so you're running a childcare center in a building full of asbestos that has faulty wiring and is basically gonna just spontaneously combust into flames one day. Like you've got to think from a risk management standpoint. This is why insurance companies are cracking down on things like that. They want to know that the buildings that you're operating in, that you've got staff and children, that they're being well maintained. Not only that, they want to know what is the construction because that determines the difference in rates. A wood frame building is not going to withstand storm or fire as well as concrete block or a steel frame constructed building. An agent's default, because it's the highest rating, an agent's default, if they are not given that data, is to select frame because we have to provide an answer. And if you say, I don't know, I can't figure it out. And if we can't figure it out by looking at pictures online or Google or public records, I tell you, we're part-time PI, most of us. I can't tell you how many times I have searched appraisal district records trying to answer these questions because the people that I'm trying to help do not know the answers. I can't remember where I was going with that. Maybe it'll come back to me. Sorry. But no, oh, the construction type. So know what the construction type is, because if you're steel frame, for instance, or non-combustible, like your barn dominium style type buildings, those are rated, they have a property rate that is less expensive than wood frame because they can withstand fire longer. You're less likely to have a total loss from the building burning to the ground than you would wood frame. So you're actually shooting yourself in the foot if you're not providing this information to your agent. It is actually masonry non-combustible or non-combustible, but you're being rated as frame simply because you didn't provide information about the construction materials. Rooftop, very similar situation, especially if you are in areas prone to wind or hail. Hello, Texas. We have wind hail storms, I don't know, once, twice a week. It's pretty common here. So if your roof is metal, or if you are tired of replacing your roof every 5 years, so you installed impact resistant shingles, make sure your agent knows that. So important. Square footage, I'll always be asked for that. Year built, that's a stickler, because a lot of people don't know, especially if it's an older building. I'll hear things like, I don't know, 90s-ish. Okay, 90s-ish is not an acceptable answer on an application. I need a specific year. So if you have to give a guesstimate, give me your best guesstimate, but 90s-ish won't fit in the application slot. Your updates were made. Even if you did not make the updates, if you did not occupy the building when the updates were made, ask your landlord, because the insurance company is going to want to know, especially if it is 20 years or older. Actually, I would say probably 15 years or older, because they're getting more picky. But make sure that, you know, the roof, and just so y'all know, I had a situation where a tenant in a 2-story building, she leased the ground floor space. Landlord insured the building. She had water damage in her first floor tenant suite due to roof damage. So when the insurance companies are asking you for the roof and you're like, why is this relevant to me? I'm on a first floor in a leased, you know, strip center. Well, my client had water damage because the roof needed repair. It was in bad shape. The space directly above her, nobody was occupying. So it was a vacant space. So nobody was aware that water was just leaking and filling in that suite above her building, above her business. And then it finally started leaking into her space. And the landlord said, yeah, no, I'm not covering that, because she's responsible for carrying the insurance inside her suite. And yes, she probably could have got an attorney and fought it, but y'all know how it is when you're working with attorneys and things get drawn out, and just the legal battle. She didn't want to lose her space. I mean, you got to pick your battles, unfortunately. So this is why it's important to provide that information. If the insurance company sees that the building was built in 1960 and you don't provide a year that the roof was updated or replaced, they're assuming that the roof is the original year of 1960, and they're probably not going to give you a quote. So super important. We talked about pay attention to how questions are worded. Answer every question. If there are questions that are not relevant to your business, let your agent know. Otherwise, they're thinking that those questions were either skipped over, or they're just going to send the application. I have a wonderful teammate who helps me review the applications now, because obviously there were some errors that I was making and not catching how people were answering questions. So I brought on a full-time person to help me make sure that we are submitting correct and truthful applications, so that we're not setting anybody up for failure. And one of the things that she does is follow up on every unanswered question. Well, if you're being proactive and there are sections that are not relevant to you, reach out to your agent and say, hey, you know, there wasn't an option to say not applicable when I was filling out this application, but I want to let you know questions 1, 3, 10 are not relevant to my business. None of those apply, but I couldn't answer that way on the application. That way they're not following up from you for information that just delayed them being able to order quotes. And it also lets them go ahead and tell the underwriter that when they're submitting your application, so that the underwriter doesn't look at it, think that you just skipped over questions, and now you're delaying your quote again because they're going to follow up with the agent and say, hey, we need this missing info. Agent's going to follow up with you and say, hey, we need this missing info. So be upfront, let them know in advance any questions that do not apply to your business. And then attach supporting documents. Most of the supporting documents are items that I covered in the last slide, your loss runs, copies of policies, licenses, accreditation certificates. There may be additional requests. First time that I've ever been asked for financials, but I had a company ask for full financials. They wanted the balance sheet and the P&L before they would consider, and they wanted 3 years worth of financials before they would consider offering a quote. So if there is supporting documents being requested, make sure that you're providing that info. Okay, so let's talk about a narrative and why is this important? I want you to think of a narrative as a high view cover page of your program and why you are worth insuring to insurance companies. It should showcase all the things that you are doing right to make them realize that you're a smart risk to insure, because that's what they're looking for right now, smart risks. We need them more than they need us. Unfortunately, they are not looking to insure just anybody and everybody. They want to make money, but they want to keep the money they make. Remember, we talked about the net 103.9 loss ratio. They didn't keep any money they made because they paid it all back in claims. So they're looking for smart risks right now. And we need to show them that that's what you are, that you're worth insuring. You're not likely to have a claim. You've implemented safety protocols and risk management to help protect not only your property, your employees, but also the children in your care. And the way to do that is focusing on these 5 areas that are really important to insurance companies when they're evaluating your application. They want to know about your executive management team. How many years have you been in the business? What's your background? Are you involved in industry associations? I have had a couple of times where an insurance company offered premium credits, one as much as $5,000. It was a substantial savings, just because they found out that that a provider that I was working on was involved in several industry associations. It showed them that she is actively participating in trying to better herself, her business. She wants to do things right. She wants to be successful. And they were impressed by that. It gave them peace of mind. What is your philosophy toward making the premises safe and secure? We want to show the insurance company that you are a good fit and a good partner. They want people and want to insure businesses that are going to help share some of the risk and absorb by doing your part to make sure that the premises is safe and secure. So we want the narrative to highlight that. I want you to think of this like a real estate listing, for instance. So a real estate agent is going to they're going to be very careful about their wording. They're going to use beautiful pictures, well lit, natural light. Everything is neat and tidy. And the whole purpose of that is to make you want to either see or purchase that property before you've actually visited, just based on the listing. That's what we want to do with the narrative. We want to make the insurance company, we want to entice them that your business is worth insuring based on what they're seeing and reading. You've got all the right things in place. Your safety procedures are on point. You're a well-established program. You're involved in industry associations, regular training with your staff. Those things are not all captured by the applications that you're filling out. Some of them, yes. Like I know there are usually questions that ask about video surveillance, but there's not room for you to elaborate in all the things that y'all may already be doing. That's why we want to put together a narrative. Touch base on claims. They happen. Sometimes they can't be prevented. What happened? Give them details of the situation. How have you changed things to keep the claim from happening again? Basically, how we address the licensing violations. We want to apply that same concept to any claims that you've experienced. Water damage claims is a big one right now. So let's say you had, you were affected by Asmageddon here in Texas and Oklahoma in 2021. Being able to confront that and say, you know what, we maintained heat in the building. We left the cabinet doors open to access so the heat could access the plumbing. We left the faucets dripping. We did everything that we could have, but we never predicted that the entire state was going to be without power. I say that jokingly, but not really. A lot of us lost power. I think we had 16 people in our house because we were one of the fortunate ones that didn't. It's not just looking like, oh, well, you were negligent. Just left for the weekend and didn't pay attention to the freeze warnings, didn't do anything to try and control the situation and make sure that it didn't happen to you. No, you're telling them, you know what, we had this claim, we did all the right things to try and control the risk, and it happened anyways due to no fault of our own. Our power grid shutting down and failing us is absolutely no control of our own. Now, to respond to what did you do to keep that from happening again? Maybe you installed water sensors so that you would get an early leak detection notice. Maybe you've since added backup generators, so that way you won't lose power. We want to control the narrative. Bad things happen, but what have you done to keep it from happening again? Training, written policies and procedures is going to be crucial. You will probably be asked to provide written policies and procedures. At minimum, you will be asked for a written abuse prevention policy. I do have a sample if anybody needs one. It's like 20 pages long, but it was provided to me by a carrier. So I know it will at least meet their requirements. How often do you train staff? Remedial staff training. I talked about I have a client that uses licensing violations as a remedial staff training effort. They get together as a team and all review that licensing violation, what led up to it and how it could have been prevented. So that way it's not just you're reviewing it with that one employee involved. Well, now you're making sure that it's not going to happen with any of the other employees because they all learned from the one employee's mistake. Protection. I mentioned camera surveillance. I don't know if y'all use PB&J TV, but they have this new AI feature that I think is really cool and worth telling the insurance company about if you use it. The new AI tech can detect weapons approaching the premises. It can analyze, oh my gosh, what are they called? License plate numbers. So they can have on record of each recorded pickup party the license plate of that vehicle and detect if there are any license plates or vehicles approaching that are not already registered as a pickup party that may be somebody they need to be cautious of and be prepared to be on lockdown for. Also does detection in the classroom and can alert staff immediately if out of ratio occurs or if there's a child left unsupervised in a room or on the playground. Letting the insurance company know if you have something fancy like that is definitely going to be a bonus feature, something worth highlighting in your narrative. Maintenance. How well do you take care of your property, your vehicles? We already talked about the importance of your updates to the roof, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems. Are you on a routine maintenance schedule? Do you have a licensed plumber come out every year, an electrician? And, maybe you haven't updated the property in 10 years, but you haven't needed to because you are on a routine maintenance schedule. And these licensed contractors come out and they tell you everything is in great working order. They check the seals around the pipes, make sure that they're not leaking. They check the water heater to make sure that it's not nearing the end of its life expectancy and about to give out on you. They test the electrical. It's okay if you haven't updated your facility, but letting the insurance company know the reason you haven't updated your facility is because it's been looked into and is still in good working order is going to help paint a prettier picture than them just seeing your building is 20 years old and you've never considered or thought about updating it.
Hey, Sam.
Play equipment. Yes.
I'm so sorry. We had a question in the chat about what was the name of the surveillance company that you referenced?
PB&J TV, like peanut butter and jelly TV.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, play equipment. That is a big one because a lot of the hazards, I think it was like 23% of claims happen from playground or play equipment related injuries. So just making sure that that play equipment is inspected regularly, that you're walking the premises, that there's not any, roots growing up out of the ground that kids can trip over, or broken or protruding parts waiting to cut them open. Like, just being proactive is going to protect you in the long run. You may already be doing that, but does your insurance company know? That's the thing. We want to make sure that they know the things that you are already doing to protect the children and your property. And then anybody that has a fire sprinkler system, this is a big one. Water damage claims from fire sprinkler systems are of a significant concern to insurance companies, specifically because Ice-Mageddon, and any areas that are prone to freezing temperatures. Actually, my teammate, Hillary, that we brought on board, her ex-husband installs fire sprinkler systems in commercial facilities. And she was like, hey, I want to connect you with him because he can probably explain to you how it works. So he took my call and I had a million questions. But one of the things that he told me that was absolutely mind-blowing was that most fire sprinkler contractors or like installation companies are unionized. And he said they are more likely they'll install the system, but not teach the property owner how to maintain the system or mention winterizing it, simply because they will get paid more when the system freezes and bursts than they'd get paid more from insurance when the system freezes and bursts versus if they were to teach you how to maintain it and winterize it so that you don't experience a loss like that. And it blew my mind because, well, I don't like anything shady like that, but it makes so much sense why I've seen so many clients experience a sprinkler damage loss due to a flood because the pipes froze. And most frequent claim I've ever seen. So make sure that you're on a winterization schedule. If somebody has never approached you or they've not talked to you about that, especially if you're in a cold climate, absolutely make sure that you contact them and ask if that's something that you can set up. If you don't feel comfortable with that company, ask somebody else, but get your system winterized in advance of extreme cold. Okay, so this is what the narrative template that I have created for you all looks like. If you want to, no, not if you want to, I need y'all to scan the QR code. This is free download, created it just for you. Scan the QR code. It'll ask for your contact information. That way you can automatically be sent the download. It is plug and play. The middle copy is what it looks like. There's also there's a second page behind that's just for pictures. You can choose to use that or not. I recommend doing this per site, but you can type right into it and you can upload pictures right into it. For the pictures, make sure that you are selecting photos around your facility and playground where everything is neat and tidy and beautiful. Again, we want this to entice the insurance company to want to insure you. So if you send them pictures of your center looking a hot mess, they're probably not going to want to insure you. So get in there during the weekend one time, have everything cleaned up, looking super sparkly and in its place, get some nice photos and use that for this narrative. It's a total 4-page document. The image on the left is just guiding questions to get you thinking from a risk management standpoint. This is not all inclusive. It does not have to be specific to your program. It is not designed for you to answer just these questions and these questions only. It's just designed to get you thinking what might be worth sharing about my program to put on this narrative. And then the one on the right shows kind of a sample write-up that I put together. A lot of this stuff is made up just based on things that I know that an insurance company would want to see. So you can use as much of that if you want, if it's relevant to your program. Obviously, don't use anything that's not accurate to your center or centers. But absolutely use this guide and send it along with the application, your write-up about the licensing violations. Have these items prepared to help your agent go to battle for you.
Hey, Sam, could I ask a quick
Yes.
question? This is Cindy.
Absolutely.
We had someone in the chat ask for a child abuse prevention policy. And I was wondering, are you specifically speaking to one that we can reference, or is this something that they need to go back and have a policy of their own based on childcare licensing regulations in their state?
So that's a really good question. If they already have one, the biggest thing that I see is people will send me like a snapshot of 2 paragraphs from whatever is required, whatever verbiage is required by the state for them to include. That's not what the insurance company is looking for. They want to see a well thought out prevention policy, how you address accusations, how often training happens regarding signs and symptoms of abuse, what happens to employees if they're accused. It's way more elaborate than the verbiage that licensing requires. So the document that I'm referring to can be customized to each of your program. You can add and tweak, however much you want, but I definitely recommend, for the market that we're in right now, having something more elaborate than just what licensing requires.
So do you have an example of that, or?
I do, yes.
Would you be able to provide it to the participants? Is that something you're able to do?
Yes, so I can send it to you as an attachment. Or if y'all want to create, like you did with the legislator email for me, if you want to create a link to download that, we can do that and send that out afterwards with the replay.
Okay, does that sound good to you, Mariah?
Yeah, no, that's excellent.
All right, well, thanks for bringing that up and helping us with that, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome. Y'all remind me after, because I'll end up chasing a squirrel and forgetting.
Okay, I love it.
All right. So other things that would be worth showcasing on your narrative, anything that makes you less risky that is unique to your program. If you're in a coastal state and your building was built to withstand 150-mile winds plus, make sure that you capture that information on your narrative, and or let your agent know in the way that you answer the application questions. I had a Primrose owner in Edmond that built her facility years ago with a storm shelter. She has a whole center of her building cement block safe room built in the middle of her facility, so that if a tornado ever does come in the midst of business hours, she has a safe place for all of her employees and children. And had I not asked the right questions, I wouldn't have known that that was something she provided. And it helped me save her some premium on liability, because the insurance company was really impressed that she went above and beyond to build that. So just make sure that anything that is unique about your program that makes you less risky, let your agent know. If your agent doesn't know, they can't tell the insurance company, and the insurance company is the one that controls your rates and premiums. On-site security. On-site security and backup generators. I got both of those ideas from a Kids Are Kids owner. I don't know, for those of you that are not in Texas, There was a scare not too long ago where some teenagers, it went viral that some teenagers were heading to Texas to shoot up a preschool, and nobody knew which preschool it was. So everybody was just kind of on guard and, you know, a little scared. And so one of the Kids Are Kids owner, I love that he found police officers off duty and, you know, hired them to stand guard outside his facility just to provide peace of mind to the parents, that, you know, his children or their children would be protected. On-site security. A lot of you are probably not doing that, may not be in a place to do that, but if you are, let them know. Impact resistant shingles, talked about that. Non-combustible clearance around your building. So this wildfires is becoming an increasing concern, and I'm actually seeing some wildfire deductibles similar to how we have wind hail deductibles in areas that are prone to wildfire. So if you have a non-combustible clearance around your building, and what I mean by that is, let's say the 5 feet directly surrounding your building is rocks or you know, some type of gravel landscaping. It will not burn. And there's nothing but field around you that it's a concern to insurance companies, letting them know that you have that non-combustible clearance. There is not debris or brush next to your facility that could help make your building catch fire if there was a local fire. Something worth sharing. It's an unusual feature. You may or may not have it depending on which state you're in, but if you're in an area prone to wildfires, that could be something that you consider. Definitely highlight it on the narrative. And then there were a couple, I'm starting to hear in areas that are prone to hail, vehicles, especially if you have a lot of autos in a certain area. If you have them parked under an awning or garaged or parked in a fenced in area, anything like that that deters theft, especially since your vehicles are targeted for catalytic converter theft, that'd be worth sharing too, because it shows that you're being proactive in trying to keep those vehicles protected. All right, so here are just some examples of things that y'all may already be doing that would be worth sharing with underwriting. You know, annual inspections. We talked about plumbing, electrical, roof, HVAC. Just make sure that they know that. If you're not already doing something like that, it might be good to add it, especially if you are in an older building, so that it gives you and the insurance company peace of mind that the building is in great working order. Exterior irrigation system. I had a huge claim from a Primrose owner. Her exterior was stucco, and the entire exterior wall, for years, the sprinklers were spraying more on the exterior wall than they were the landscaping. And they ended up finding out when an employee went to put her hand on the wall inside the building, and it squished through. The stucco had absorbed the water, the insulation absorbed the water, and the sheetrock absorbed the water. So you can imagine how long this took. There was mold remediation that happened, and because it affected like 4 classrooms, it really wreaked havoc on her program as she had to adjust and move kids around to be able to stay in ratio and age ranges. So just making sure that everything is working the way that it's supposed to. Be proactive. Drains, gutters, and roofs. Keep them free of debris. If you don't have the gutter covers, make sure that those are regularly cleared out, especially if you have a lot of trees in your area, because when the gutters get backed up with debris, it causes water to set in the gutters and then leak into your roof. The gutters are there to keep the water away from sitting on the roof and away from sitting on your building. But if they're full of debris, that you're not using them for what they're intended for. Keeping trees trimmed back from the building, 100%. Insurance companies usually lack 3 to 5 feet of clearance from the building. It's not always possible, but the reason for that is, you know, if there's any high winds and the trees or brush are close enough to your building that it would cause those limbs or branches to either fall on or rub up against your building and cause damage. That's why they like that clearance. Especially keep an eye on any trees that overhang your building, especially if those trees look sickly. You want to have those limbs trimmed and removed so that they don't break off and fall on your building one day and cause damage. Replace your water heater proactively. They have a life expectancy. Please don't wait until your water heater breaks and floods your building to replace it. That's not being proactive, that's reactive. Know where your water shutoff valves are. This is a big one. There is app technology now where you can connect it to your water shutoff valve. And if there is an early leak or a leak detected, you'll get a notification to your phone and you can hit a button on the app to shut off the water immediately while y'all try and identify where the leak is coming from. What you do not want to happen, and this is why your staff also needs to know where the water shutoff valves are. If you finally take a vacation, it's been 10 years since you had a vacation and you're like, you know what, I'm going to unplug. It's finally time for me to go on a trip and disappear for a bit and not think about work. And there's a water leak somewhere and your staff can't find it and they can't get a hold of you. They don't know what to do. And your building is just filling up with water. I had ran into a couple not too long ago where they said that they cannot find where the leak is coming from. So water is it's just steadily leaking into their building and they can't figure out where it's coming from. They finally shut it off. But know where your shutoff valves are and train your staff to. Water detection sensors is a big thing. A lot of insurance companies are actually providing those to policyholders right now. I know Philadelphia and Church Mutual have both started doing this, but if they insure your property, they're actually wanting to send you water detection sensors free on them for you to install to help them make sure that there is not any significant leaks that would lead to very costly insurance claims. Fire sprinklers, again, big one. If you have a sprinkler system, make sure that it is being maintained. If it's a wet pipe system, ask if there's an approved antifreeze solution that can be put in the lines that will help prevent freezing. Contact the service provider to make sure that you're on a winterization contract. I recently learned about something called heat tracing, which it basically looks like a slinky for around your sprinkler pipes. So in areas that heat can't be maintained, like your attic, we don't want you going up there with space heaters. That's dangerous. But heat tracing might be an option. And basically what this is designed to do is it wraps around the sprinkler system pipes in unheated areas to concentrate heat specifically to those pipes to keep them from freezing. So that might be something that you can consider, especially if you're getting ready to build and looking at things that you can do to protect your property. Auto exposure. Have your vehicles routinely inspected. Check the tire tread. Y'all are transporting people's precious cargo, most precious cargo. You do not want to be involved in a vehicle collision and the media picks up that you were driving these kids around on the baldest tires that anybody has ever seen in their life. Even if the kids were perfectly fine, they would probably tear y'all apart because childcare is so heavily regulated that any slip up y'all make paints a target on your back. Make sure that you're staying on top of things that you can control. Install fleet telematics. If you have a large fleet of vehicles, know where those vehicles are at all times. I have a policy holder that, fleet telematics is not something that's in their budget. And she told me that they have the bus driver share their location with the director. So at all times, and of course the bus driver is not on their phone, the phone is put away, but at all times that director knows where the vehicle is and the children. And I thought that's a very clever and inexpensive way that you can keep track of your vehicles. Cages around catalytic converters or theft alarms. The theft alarm, it basically looks like a bike lock, but y'all's vehicles are targeted for this, especially if you have more than one parked in an area, because thieves can literally roll in, cut it out, and be gone in like 15 minutes. And each one of those cat converter claims is about $3,500 claim payout, not counting your $1,000 average deductible. So you're looking at a total loss of about $4,500 per auto. And that was before the cost of everything involving automobiles skyrocketed and became really hard to find. So I don't even want to know what it costs now, but I've seen so many catalytic converter thefts, and the minimum payout is always around the $4,500 range. Easy thing that you can do, since cages is not, that can be a little bit more costly. And I actually had a policy holder do this. High heat fluorescent paint. I recommend pink because, you know, fluorescent paint comes in neon, but you can choose whatever color you want. Get a can of high heat fluorescent paint, have your husband roll under there and spray that part, and also etch the VIN number into the part. The problem and the reason that these parts are so frequently stolen is there is no way to track them back to where they were stolen from, because there's no identifying information on the part itself. So if your VIN number is etched into that part, and if it's neon pink and it shows up at a scrapyard, they're not going to buy that from the thief, period. One, it has a VIN number that tracks it back to who it was stolen from. And two, it's pink, which is a serious red flag. Why would somebody spend the time to paint it pink if it wasn't stolen? No child left behind auto alarms. If that would be something worth sharing on your narrative, if you have those installed. It's also an intended theft deterrent. One of the ladies that I follow on Facebook shared not too long ago about her vehicle being stolen and then abandoned less than a mile later because the thief couldn't figure out that he needed to walk to the back of the bus to turn the alarm off. So he was driving around with this alarm blaring and then finally gave up and just hopped out and abandoned it. So of course, officers recovered it, returned it to the owner. But I thought that was really interesting and also funny. Driver safety training program. If you have that, make sure the insurance company knows. Order motor vehicles annually on your drivers. The background checks do not always include, most of them do not include motor vehicle records. And same with the bald tire concept. If there's an accident involving one of your employees, especially if children are on board, you do not want to be under the spotlight for somebody that allowed a driver with 3 DUIs in the last year to be the one behind the wheel. Make sure you are running motor vehicle records annually on your bus drivers. And then liability exposure. How can you reduce exposure in some of these areas? Really cheap and inexpensive floor mats and runners in wet areas, near the doors, under water fountains, under sinks. Slip, trips, and falls are one of the most common claims, and they're easily preventable. A long time ago in another life, I worked at Walmart, and it's so funny because thinking back now, they appointed me as the leader of the safety team. Like, it was my job to come up with incentives to incentivize workplace safety. And now I'm like, no wonder I ended up in risk management. But anyways, we had these absorbent pads that would fit in our pocket, and anytime there was water that we saw on the floor, we were able to easily clean it up because we already had it on us as a person. I made sure everybody in the store had these absorbent pads with them. So that way we were protecting ourselves, fellow employees, and customers that were coming into the store. So, you know, something as easy as that, making sure that that your employees have access to something like those absorbent pads where they keep them on them in their back pocket, and if they wear scrubs, so that if they come across a spill, they can immediately clean it up versus having to go across the room to get paper towels and the child has slipped and fell on it in that short time frame. Replace wood chips on a regular scheduled basis, conduct monthly trainings, create a mentorship program with employees to pair new employees with seasoned team members, have the fence inspected regularly, have commercial play equipment inspected regularly. If you use lower than required ratios, definitely worth showcasing on your narrative. I hear a lot of people or read a lot of websites that say, if the ratio is 1 to 12, well, we're 1 to 6. Insurance companies like lower than state required ratios. They do. Some of them even require that you have lower than state required ratios for their peace of mind. So if that's something that's already integrated in your program, showcase it on the narrative. Don't ignore red flags and hostile employees. I'm seeing a lot of claims from former employees for improper training, negligent supervision, especially former employees that had their children enrolled in the program. It's almost like they're using their child being enrolled there and their disgruntled employment as a cash cow. And it really bothers me. So if you notice employees that tend to be more hostile, very gossipy, toxic, don't ignore that. I'm gonna leave it there. If you have pinch guards or hinge guards on doors, also something worth showcasing. And just wanted to share this. This is a sample narrative that one of my clients put together. This is only 10 of her 21-page total narrative. She went very elaborate and I love it. It's beautiful. But one of the things that I would recommend, since y'all are spending the time to put this narrative together, use it as a free resource to parents. Let them see what y'all are doing to protect your property, to make sure it's well maintained, to protect the kids. All of this information that you're showing and sharing with the insurance company as what makes you worth insuring also tells the parents that you're doing everything you possibly can to create the best environment for their children. So I really think creating a narrative is it's a purpose. But this was, she already had her branding and everything uploaded. I think the system she told me was Mark, M-A-R-Q. So this wasn't Canva, but you could easily do something like this in Canva. And sky's the limit. You don't have to use the template that I created. Just use the concept and create whatever you want. All right. Lastly, there is power in numbers. And I'm so fortunate for a partner like NCCA because they have made it easy for y'all to share this narrative or this legislator template that I put together with your legislators. In the replay email following up to this webinar, they're going to send you those links. But I encourage all of you to take action, contact your state reps, let them know about the insurance crisis. You don't have to come up with any of the wording. The yellow fields are literally all that you have to change or modify, and then you just send it. But I am one person and I'm not getting the attention. And I live in one state. Y'all have businesses all over the place. So I don't have the ability or the bandwidth to be able to contact every state that I have clients in. And my voice doesn't matter as much as y'all's because I'm just the agent. I'm not the business owner. They listen to y'all more than they do me. I actually had a friend send this to our state reps here in Texas, and she got a response within 2 days, and it's already led to a 1-hour FaceTime on April 5th. So not only did they consider it urgent enough that they got a meeting scheduled with her recently. I mean, I was expecting if we were to get a response, they'd be like, oh, I can fit you in 6 to 8 months from now. No, they considered it urgent enough that they fit her in 2 weeks from now. So if you get a response, let me know. I will listen and talk to anybody that will give y'all an opportunity to hear more or learn more. I'll do whatever I can to help. And then I know we're at time, but I will take any questions. And here's my contact info if y'all want to strategize about insurance, or, if you want me to speak to your state reps, or if you have lobbyists or, whatever, I'm available.
Thank you so, so much, Sam. I think we can all agree that this was well worth the extra time. This is so full of valuable information that I'm sure many of you have been scratching your heads or just fighting insurance reps or just all the different policy and standards that are consistently moving and changing, and of course the price. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and, oh, someone in the chat said, can they see the narrative? Or is that something you could also provide, Sam, that I could attach as a resource?
Yeah, yeah, I can do that. I had already asked Charlie for her permission to share.
Okay, perfect. I think that we also had another question. The website for the No Child Left Behind alarm systems, which that one is?
I don't have a website for that. I actually don't know who. I can look into that, but my default would be Google No Child Left Behind auto alarms because it's a program specific to vehicles.
Gotcha. Okay.
We
check.
also had something from Brian Lee. He had a great question earlier. It was actually a comment, but he said that he just had to do this and the loss runs had to be within 180 days, even though the 2019 to 2021 data had not changed. So
Yeah.
So can you?
So usually, yes. The data, the reason that we're not concerned with the data changing, the concern is more it could change. A claim could have occurred or been brought up within the 180 to 60 day period. And insurance companies are just being really cautious to make sure that there's not any recent activity since the last time that they received loss runs. Not every insurance company is that picky, but it's few and far between. The majority of them want to see loss runs valued within 60 days, not 180, even if the info hasn't changed. They want to see the date on that the loss report was generated is within 60 days of your expiration date.
Any additional questions before we check in with our director, Cindy, to see if she has any additional words? If not, we do have the contact info for our presenter, and we'll definitely be sending that along with the follow-up, along with all the resources that we discussed. So I just want to open the floor really quick. Cindy, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we switch gears? Okay.
Sorry about that. I muted and then I was on the chat screen and my fingers don't always work fast and furious. I do want to thank Sam. Again, I know that she's been doing this around the country, and I hope that if you do have questions, you'll give her a call, because she obviously is very interested in helping childcare have what they need. And she told you her personal experience, which of course, that will stay with her forever. And that's why she's doing what she's doing. And who better to help? Is it somebody that can feel, the pain of a situation? So that's why we love having her as a partner. Sam, we'll see you in Austin in a few weeks. And thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. And now, how old is your son now?
Oh, he is now 13 and a man child. He towers over my husband, has surpassed him in shoes. He is a very big boy.
Well, that's usually what happens. And can you see his little scar? Does he still have?
He does. It's not as noticeable anymore, but you can still see it.
All right. Well, I'm sorry you had that situation, but thank you for helping others as a result of it.